McIntyre, I was drafted before you, is simple wrestling economics. It's because I am the best in the world, in this ring, on this microphone.
The one that caused all of this was that prick CM Punk.
Never been much of a spiritual person, but I want you to know this. I prayed for this and it happened.
Losers hope things happen. Losers pray for things to happen. Winners make it happen. And when I'm cleared, when I'm 100%, I promise you, I am going to make your life a living hell.
Hey everyone, this is Spear Studios. Here, we're going to look at WWE through a Christian lens, and I'm not talking about the wrestler known as Christian, but we are going to look at different storylines, rivalries, and feuds within the WWE universe to find biblical principles to glean from. Without further delay, let's get into it. Today we're diving into one of the most talked about WWE feuds of 2024, CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. While Drew's Claymores and Punk's GTS are captivating, this feud teaches us something much deeper: how pride and hate can ultimately destroy us if we let them take root in our lives. Before we get into it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content like this. Let's jump right in. Before I get into the Christian perspective of this feud and what this can teach us as Christians, I want to give some background of how the feud started. To give some context, the feud between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre started last year. It was Survivor Series 2023 with a classic War Games match, and there was a surprise return from Randy Orton. But that wasn't the only surprise of the night. Amongst the excitement of many fans in the arena, there are plenty of superstars that weren't too happy with Punk's return. Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, and Drew McIntyre. Drew had words for Punk, saying he was a terrible person for how he treated Drew in the past and a poison to the entire WWE locker room. Fast forward to the Royal Rumble, it was here that Punk injured his arm in the match and he had to be sidelined for the WrestleMania season. A bitter pill to swallow for the superstar that hadn't been in WWE for 10 years. But Drew had no remorse, even saying that he quote-unquote prayed for this to happen to Punk. What hatred towards this man. Punk did not hesitate to tell Drew that once he finishes rehab and is medically cleared, that he is coming for Drew. At this point, the rivalry was in full swing as Drew stomped Punk's arm to create more pain in his arm, prolonging the rehab. It was only a matter of time before Punk comes back in his full health. The weeks following the Royal Rumble were filled with piercing promos between the two. Twitter posts and meme t-shirts aside, we could see that this was more than wrestling. This was clearly personal. The two fought at 3 different pay-per-views: SummerSlam, Bash in Berlin, and at Bad Blood. These two couldn't stop fighting each other. Drew defeated Punk in a special guest referee match at SummerSlam. Punk won in a strap match at Bash of Berlin, and it was at Bad Blood where Punk reigned supreme over his foe in a truly gruesome Hell in a Cell match. But I'm not going to delve into what transpired in each of these fights or the build-up. The video will be too long for that. Instead, like I said earlier, I want to go through some of the key moments in the feud and how we as Christians can glean from them. If you are still here, don't forget to like the video. It helps the channel out, and it lets me know if you guys like this kind of stuff.
The reason, Drew McIntyre, I was drafted before you, is simple wrestling economics. It's because I am the best in the world, in this ring, on this microphone.
Now let's take a step back and let's talk about pride. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18 tells us, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." And we see this play out in the feud. CM Punk's pride made him unwilling to admit any fault. His ego blinded him, making everything personal. Does that sound familiar? How often do we let pride prevent us from reconciling with someone or admitting that we're wrong? Let's go back to WrestleMania 40, where Drew McIntyre did accomplish his goal of becoming a world champion, something that he had been searching for since he was the WWE champion in 2020. He proved the doubters wrong. Even though he lost to Seth Rollins 2 times earlier that year, he defeated Rollins on the grandest wrestling stage of them all. But this wasn't enough for Drew. Amongst the victory, amongst the fans cheering for him, pride got in the way. He decided to taunt Punk and gloat his championship in Punk's face. Reminiscent of the scripture found in Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18, this taunting led to an attack from Punk and Drew ultimately losing his title to Damian Priest a few minutes later. Now imagine a scenario where Drew accepted his belt with grace, not taunting as he did. Well, as you can see here, pride definitely led to Drew's downfall, not only losing the belt, but also having been embarrassed by Punk on the biggest stage of them all. You see, pride isolates us. It breaks relationships and keeps us from growing. It happened to Punk in the storyline, and it can happen to us in real life if we're not careful. Think about how distant Drew became to the WWE locker room. He became an enemy to almost everyone, including Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. The Scottish Warrior had almost abandoned everyone and everything in order to quench his thirst of hatred for Punk. In the same way, Punk had no allies himself, even to go as far as saying that he had to not be around his wife and dog because once he gets into a certain mind state, all bets are off. This isolation is dangerous, and if left unchecked, could happen to us as well. Another dangerous thing about pride is that we often don't see it until it's too late. Both Punk and McIntyre thought they were in the right, that the other person did them wrong, and that they were blameless. Drew believed, in so many words, that Punk was a poison that didn't need to be in WWE anymore. Not only is he self-absorbed, but his time was over, and it was time to let the past be the past. Why come back to the place that you've abandoned for so long? While Punk believed that McIntyre was stuck in the past. Who Punk used to be isn't the same man that stood in this ring. And he was tired of being blamed for how other people felt about the past version of him. In the words of Punk, he didn't come to make friends, he came to make money.
You're straight edge. You don't have any demons. You are a demon. A self-serving, narcissistic succubus.
Then there's hate. Drew McIntyre let his bitterness over Punk's words and actions fuel his rage. Drew's hatred for Punk had consumed him. Every week, Drew's every thought and every action was fixated on one thing: CM Punk's destruction. He wasn't going to stop until Punk's career was over, or he would die trying. This culminated into a Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood, the horrors of the steel cage that was designed for matches like these. Punk wanted nothing more than to end Drew's career as well. You see, when Punk returned last year, his main focus was to win a championship. He also wanted to main event WrestleMania. Now, injuries aside, Punk allowed his hate for Drew to fester as he forgot all about his championship aspirations and goals just to be able to keep McIntyre down. Hatred keeps us occupied on things that, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't actually matter. When we allow hate to consume us, it clouds our judgment and leads us down destructive paths. Drew's obsession with revenge only made things worse. Not just for Punk, but also for himself. The Bible warns us about this in 1 John chapter 2, verses 9 through 11, which says, "Anyone who hates a brother or sister is in the darkness and walks around in that darkness." The one thing about hate is that it starts slow. Someone does us wrong and we want revenge. We want that person to get what's coming to them. And this is a natural reaction because of how sinful we are as human beings. But quickly it can control our thoughts and actions when we aren't worried about how God is concerned, but only what we are concerned about. Romans chapter 12 verse 19 reminds us, "Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." We have to be reminded that hate will not give us the outcome we believe it will. Let's give ultimate judgment and wrath to God, for He is the one who knows what to do best. So, what can we as Christians learn from this feud? Here are 3 takeaways. First, choose humility over pride. Philippians chapter 2 verses 3 and 4 reminds us, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves." You see, Punk's arrogance caused unnecessary conflict. Humility, on the other hand, helps us build bridges and maintain healthy relationships. If it wasn't for Punk antagonizing Drew at every turn, perhaps they could have made amends. Perhaps they wouldn't have been the best of friends, but willing to help each other out in drastic times against a common enemy, like Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. Not to mention, the pride from Drew made it impossible for him to ever see Punk as someone he was better than, and had to get the upper hand on. Let this be a lesson to seek humility over pride, to build a bridge rather than burning it, to seek the good of others rather than your selfish ambitions. Now, let's get to the second takeaway. The second takeaway is to respond with love, not hate. Jesus teaches us in Matthew chapter 5 verse 44 to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Imagine how different the feud would have been if Drew chose to forgive rather than retaliate. In our own lives, choosing love can stop hate in its tracks. Think of a time where you had to choose between the high road, if you will, rather than getting yourself worked up and in the weeds with somebody else. Not only did that situation not become something bigger or more drastic than it had to be, but you could have made a friend instead of an enemy. Carrying all that hate in your heart is something that will drag you down mentally and psychologically, and as you can see with Drew and Punk, could make you kind of crazy. Let's get to the last takeaway. Finally, take time to reflect. Ask yourself, where is pride or hate showing up in my life? Maybe it's in a conflict with a coworker or a family member. Identifying these areas is the first step towards change. And as you identify these areas, just remember that we are not perfect. Neither you or the person in the conflict. So we all have something to work on. No, it may not be as heated as this particular rivalry, but it could be something as small as passive-aggressive comments as you are talking to them or about them. Self-reflection is going to be key in determining if pride or hatred is slowly making its way into your life. So 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and 12 reminds us, "So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall." Let us be aware of the pitfalls of pride and hate in our own lives as we continue living on this planet called Earth. So, as we've seen, the feud between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre isn't just an entertaining storyline. It's a cautionary tale. Pride and hate might seem justified in the moment, but they ultimately lead to destruction, not just for others, but for ourselves. As Romans chapter 12 verse 18 says, "If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." Let's strive to live that verse out. If this message resonated with you, give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need this reminder. And let me know in the comments, how do you handle pride and hate in your own life? Thanks for watching, and remember, faith can be found in the most unexpected places. I'll see you next time.